Welcome to the sewing club for this month. This is session number 2. We're going to be making a second reusable fabric gift bag. This one is quite a bit larger. It is 22 inches long and 16 inches wide. And it has a single drawstring bow closure. And it's not lined. So this is a version that's a little bit faster to sew. It's unlined. And we are going to start cutting it out here in a minute. Pauline, is Melissa joining us?
Let me call her.
Raj just texted me. She doesn't have the link, so I'm gonna send it to her. Okay, so Raj, I sent her the link, so hopefully she'll join us. Oh, here's Melissa. Here's Raj. There we go. Okay. All right, so again, today we're going to make our large reusable gift bag. In our last class, we made the smaller version that had a double pull and it was fully lined. So I'll show you guys how to make this one. It's a simpler version. Good morning, Raj. Welcome. Good morning, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you for sending me the Zoom.
Oh, you're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I started recording and I've already given an intro. We're going to make the larger reusable gift bag. This one doesn't have a lining, so it's a little faster to make. It just has a single front pull. So it's like a bow front. You can either have the bow in the front or on the side. I'll show you how to do that. So let's get started cutting out. I'm going to switch my camera to the close-up video. You can see better, hopefully. So for this particular bag, you guys could make your own bag using the same technique, and you can change the measurements if you want. But for today, let's all use my measurements. This is the size I created. It's 16 inches wide on the fold. So I've taken my fabric and I've folded it right sides together. This is the selvage edge here. So this is the length ring, and I folded it in half. So the width across from the edge of the fold is 16 inches. That's what you should have. The length is 22 inches. The length is 22 inches. So if you want to change it a little, I mean, I guess you can, it's up to you. I thought that was a good size. I like the length of it. If you want to make it wider, you can maybe make it 20 inches or 18 inches, then it'd be more of a square. This is kind of a rectangle. My sample that I'm making for you today is actually only 12.5 inches across on the fold, because that's all the fabric I had. So I was going to buy new fabric, extra fabric, but I never got to it. So if you guys only have 12.5 or 13 or 14 when it's folded, and you're fine with that, you can do that. So mine is, again, 22 inches long. So I folded my fabric in half, and then I measured the length and I drew in some chalk lines. So all of you, let me fix my camera. All of you guys might have different techniques on how you want to do this. I used my measuring tape. I just folded my fabric in half and then I used my measuring tape to measure from the edge down here up 22 inches. And then I used my 18-inch ruler to help me draw in a level line at a right angle. I wanted to make sure it's at a right angle. And then I did the same up here. I measured 12.5 across at the top because I only had 12.5. You're going to do 16. And then I just measured all the way across like this to make sure that it was the same width all the way down. And I recommend having a ruler like this or even an L square. An L square like this comes in handy so that you can get that right angle. Yeah, so you could use the L square like this, and then that's how you get your straight line across. Some of you might have those quilting rulers. You can use that. So obviously it's on the fold. When it's open, it's going to be 32 inches wide. But on the fold, it's 16. It's just easier to cut that way. So I've already done my markings. I ironed it and I've actually pinned it. And I'm going to go ahead and just start cutting now. I'll type the measurements into the chat for you guys. So your pattern is 22 inches long on the length grain. And on the fold, it is 16 inches wide. 22 inches unfolded.
A bag to be that big, I can just cut to the length I want.
Who's talking? Is that Mary? Hello?
Yes. Can you hear
hey.
me?
Hi, hey, Mary, what's your question again?
I can cut it to the length I want.
Yeah, if you don't want it to be 22 inches long for some reason, sure. Make it the length that you are going to use. That you would use. Or if you don't have enough fabric, I don't want you, I would like you to be able to do this. What length are you going to make it?
17 inch.
17 inches long? Sure. Is that because you don't have enough fabric or
No, I just don't want a huge bag.
you want a smaller bag? Yeah, that's fine. Love that. Yeah. Yeah, if you have something in mind that you're going to use it for and you want it to be that size, go for it. Carol, welcome. I think Carol just joined. Yes. Hi, Carol. We already got started.
Okay.
So we're making the second gift bag. So I started recording already and I kind of gave a little intro. So you can watch that intro. Last session, we made a smaller gift bag that was fully lined and it had a 2 drawstring closure. But today we're making a bigger bag that's unlined. We're making this bag here and it has a bow in the front closure. a single drawstring closure, and this bag is longer. It's longer, it's more like a rectangle and bigger. So I was just working with, and it's not lined. So this one's faster to make. It's a little, and uses less fabric. And Mary, she was just asking me if she could change the measurements and make hers smaller. Hers isn't 22 inches long. She's doing a shorter version, and that's fine. Mine is a narrower version because I didn't have enough fabric. So if you want to adjust the size, that's fine. I typed into the chat. I don't know if you can see it, Carol.
No, I think you have to retype it because it doesn't show for me if I join late.
Yeah, because you joined after I already sent it. So
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and send it to you, everyone again. So I didn't provide a pattern. So I'm just giving you some measurements. So you can go ahead and make a pattern if you want to make a whole bunch of these. Just use some paper and make a paper pattern. But if you're just making a one-off, it might be easier just to measure it out.
And you just kind of make it to size to whatever you want to fit it in anyways, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you're only making one, if you're making several, I recommend a pattern.
Mhm. So it looks like right now you just kind of put them right side together.
Yeah, right sides together. It's going to be 22 inches long. So you want to fold it in half, right sides together. This is the length grain, and it's 22 inches long on the length grain.
Mhm.
And it's 16 inches wide on the cross grain. So this distance here should be 16 inches from here to here and 22 inches from here to here. And this is the
Okay.
length grain. So
And you're not cutting them into two pieces. There's just one big piece.
it's just one big piece. Yeah, this is a little different. I'm showing you a little different technique. So this bag only has one seam on the side seam and then a seam on the bottom. So if you look at this bag, it has just one connecting seam here. I put it in the front so that I could have the bow in the front. If you put the seam on the side, then the bow would be on the side.
Oh, that's a good idea. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to kind of show you guys how you can change things around for yourself once you learn how to do something.
No, that's
So-
awesome.
Yeah. So this bag that we did last week has two seams, one on this side and one on this side, because it's got the double pole and you need to have these holes on both sides. And so this is a different technique, but today we're going to do one seam. So our fabric is folded in half. So there's less cutting, less seams to sew. It saves time. There will be a seam on the bottom, obviously. Okay, so everyone, 22 inches long and then 16 inches folded. If it's open, if you're cutting it open, it's 32 inches when it's open, like this. I'm gonna go ahead and iron it again. Mine's a little bit wrinkled. So I'm gonna give mine another press and then I'll come back and show you the next step. My iron got cold, so it's taking me a little while to get it pressed out.
Are you actually ironing the fold too, to put that crease in there?
No, I don't iron the fold. I'm ironing it laid out just like this. I don't want a crease in it.
Oh, got it, okay.
All right, so now I'm back at the table and I'm gonna fold it back together, right sides together, just like the way I had it when I cut it. And I wanna match up my edges. And now we're gonna draw some lines. So if you have one of those like fabric markers that wash out or your chalk, I usually use chalk and a ruler. So the first line you're going to draw is actually, I lied, you guys. We're gonna do one more step at the ironing board. Sorry, I forgot. So at the ironing board, before we draw the lines in, I want you guys to open it up and you're gonna fold. You're gonna fold it a 1/2 inch this direction back like this. So I have the wrong side up and I'm gonna fold it a 1/2 inch down like this. Okay,
Is it on the 22 side or the 16 side?
the 16 side. So I've opened it up and now it's 13 inches. I mean, it's 32 inches wide, right? Because I opened it up. And I'm gonna go to the ironing board and I'm gonna iron this 1/2 inch, this top edge. We're gonna call this the top. This is gonna be the bottom. So this is the top of the bag. Mine is directional. I have a directional print, so I gotta make sure I have it going the right direction. So what you're doing is you're folding this top edge up here that's on the bag, okay? That's this finished edge here, you're folding that over. It's actually gonna get folded twice, so don't worry about that, one step at a time. We're gonna do a 1/2 inch here. Just like I'm doing here, I'm gonna take it to the ironing board and I'm gonna iron this 1/2 inch folded edge all the way across. On that 16 inch top. So it's 32 inches when it's open. If you can eyeball it, eyeball it. If you want to use your ruler because you're not sure, go ahead and use your ruler. Make sure it's nice and hot so that you can get that crease to stay. You want this 1/2 inch to stay. Fold it. Okay. So it looks like this. Okay, 32 inches across, folded, the 1/2 inches folded over to the wrong side. This is the right side. So now I'm going back to my table and now we're gonna draw some lines. I'm gonna fold it again, right sides together, just like it was when we were cutting it. The only difference is I have this folded edge now. All right, so I have my edges all matching. Now I'm going to draw a line 3.5 inches from the top. So hopefully, so I'm just measuring, I'm gonna go this way with my ruler. these clear graphic rulers come in really handy. And now I'm going to draw another line 3/4 of an inch from that first line that I drew. So this is 3.5 inches down. Now I'm going to measure 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to do a healthy 3/4 of an inch, a fat 3/4, because this is going to be our opening for the drawstring. So you want to make sure that the opening's big enough. The drawstring's only about 1/4 inch wide, so it's plenty big, but I like to make mine a little bit fatter. So I'm making it more like 7/8. So now, after you've done that, we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to sew this side seam. So this is going to be, it's either going to be a side seam or a front seam, depending on where you want your bow. So I'm going to use my pins. Just FYI, if you have adjusted the measurements, hopefully you didn't adjust the measurements too much, because I've based the ruffle and all of that kind of on the dimensions that I gave you. So, you know, if you adjust it a lot, it might change the dimensions of the bag, the ruffle, and how it looks. So keep that in mind. Did anyone else change the measurements except for Mary? Okay.
I did. I'm making a small version just because I'm behind and I don't want to. I'm just going to use the concepts to make a smaller bag.
I made
Okay.
a smaller one also.
Okay. All right. It's okay. We'll see how it looks. It should be fine. All right. So I've pinned my side seam here. And now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down along the edge here. But right here, I'm going to leave this open. So you can see my yellow marks, hopefully. So we drew this first line 3.5 inches from the top. And then a second line about 7/8, a fat 3/4 from that. So this is a whole, an opening. So I'm going to stitch, start up here, back stitch, stitch all the way down to the top of the line, stop, back stitch. And then I'm going to move my needle and start here, back stitch, and go all the way down. This has to stay open because this is where our hole is going to be. Okay, for the drawstring. Any questions? All right, so this is how it looks right now. I'm going to go to the sewing machine and start sewing. Here's my folded side. Here's my side seam that I'm sewing. This is the top. And I'm going to go sew. Okay, so I finished sewing that side seam 1/4 inch and I have my hole. Now I'm gonna go to the ironing board and I'm gonna press it open. I'm gonna press the seam open. So might be a little hard to get into your ironing board. So just do the best you can. If you can't get it in, you can do this side first and then turn it around and do the other side. To iron that open. So now the next step, how are you guys doing? Some of you is sewing. I'll slow down. When you guys are ready for the next step, let me know.
Amy, what's the seam allowance again? Is it
A
a half
quarter,
inch?
a quarter inch.
A quarter inch, okay.
So after you've sewn that seam allowance and pressed it open, then you're gonna fold the top edge, this finished edge that you folded over a half inch. You're gonna fold that back down to the wrong side like this. You wanna fold it over about 2 inches. Mine is about 2 1/4. So what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that this folded edge is sitting below the hole. So this is your little hole here for the drawstring. This edge here should be just below it. And then you're gonna pin it. It's about 2 inches. So what happens when you turn it over to the right side, your hole is right here and it's covered on the back. So I have this perfect little hole and the back side of it is covered by this folded piece. So it's clean on the inside. The key is making sure that this is folded below the hole because you don't want to sew on top of the hole. Because we're going to sew this edge down. We're going to put a stitch line right here. So you don't want that stitch line to cover up the hole. So after you find that distance and you pin it, then you measure it. Mine is 2 1/4 inches. And then you go all the way around and measure 2 1/4 inches all the way around and pin. So your measurement might be a little different than mine. Make sure you measure it and go by your measurement. So it should look like this second step.
Is that just one fold down? So the opening should be on the outside, right?
Yeah, so when I turn it to the right side, I can put my finger in the opening right here.
Okay,
So you're folding this over to the wrong side of the fabric and you have this clean edge because you press that edge. You don't have a raw edge. And you have this nice fold. This is covering the back of your hole. And you want to make sure that you pin the edge of this fold below the hole. You don't want to cover up your hole, right?
mhm.
And now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch right here, just like 1/8 of an inch above that fold right here. I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch right on the edge of the fold, all the way around, all the way around.
Okay, so the hole is centered from the inside, like the. Yeah, okay, I think I got it.
Yeah, so I'm turning my fabric right side out because I'm gonna sew. Remember, we always sew in a from the inside when we're doing a circle. So
Mhm.
that's why I turned it right side out. So now I'm gonna put my needle in right here, probably behind the seam allowance, back stitch, and stitch right all along here, just like this, all the way around.
So you know how we drew 2 lines, like you had one draw the top line and then the second line?
Yes,
Oh, I guess that line is just so you know when to start and stop for the opening, right?
correct,
It's not a fold line or anything.
correct.
Okay, got it.
Now, I don't know why I drew it all the way across. I don't think you need to draw it all the way across.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking maybe that's why we needed to like use that as a guideline, but okay.
Okay, so you guys got that next step, the fold over and then stitch right here. I'm gonna go to my sewing machine. I just pinned myself and sew that.
We don't need to iron the top part, right?
You don't need to iron it right now.
Okay.
We'll probably iron it at some point after we sew it. I'm gonna just wash my hands. All right, I'm gonna go to my sewing machine and I'm gonna stitch right here on that edge. So you guys think about your fabric color, I mean your thread color. If you want it to be matching and not really show too much on your on the outside of your bag, then you might want to change your thread color. I'm using red, which is really contrasty, but I'm okay with it. So, because it will show. So Carol, now I am going to iron it. So I'm gonna iron this piece here so that this fold is nice and flat. And you just want to make sure that you didn't sew on top of your hole. So you should still be able to get your finger in, have your hole here for your drawstring. So I have my stitch and my fold and then the holes right here. And now I'm gonna iron.
So you did one stitch, right? That goes to the bottom of the, where you folded, where the fold line was. It was
Yes,
just one stitch.
just one so far. We're gonna do 2 more.
Okay.
We're gonna have to do 2 more.
And this one you sold like as close to the edge as possible, right?
Yes, right
Okay.
on the edge of that fold. So like 1/8 of an inch from the edge of it, or you don't want to cover up your hole though. You know what, you guys, I lied. I'm not going to make you do 2 more stitches. I'm only going to make you do 1 more stitch. So if you want, you could sew another stitch right here at a 3rd stitch here at the top along this folded edge. On my sample, I didn't. I only did the stitch here that we just did right now. And then I did a second stitch above the hole to create the channel. The woman in the video that I got the inspiration for this from, she actually did another stitch up here along this fold. I don't think it's necessary. That's why I didn't do it on my sample. I kind of like the fact that the ruffle is soft. If you put a stitch right here to hold this fold down, I don't know, to me, it doesn't really serve any purpose and it's just going to make it stiffer. When you pull the drawstring, you get this nice ruffle, and having another stitch there didn't really make any sense to me. So we're going to skip that stitch. If you want to do it and you want to do the extra step, and because you think you're going to like it, you can. I don't think it's necessary. So we're just going to do 1 more stitch, and I want you to do it right side up. So I want to be top stitching right side up so that I have a nice, it's just going to look cleaner. The reason I had you do it on the other side for this stitch is because it's easier to see where the fold is, so that you don't, so you can catch this fold. If you sew from right side up, you can't see it, right? But now we don't need to have it inside out. So it's always a prettier stitch with the top stitch. Backs the underside of your what's that called? The stitch underneath with your bobbin, the bobbin stitch is never as pretty as the top stitch. So I've ironed my fold, and now I'm going to go back to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew right above the top of my hole. So everyone's going to have to find that spot on theirs. So I'm looking at mine, putting my finger in. That's the top of my hole right here. And I'm just going to take my ruler and measure the distance from the top to the top of the hole, the top of the bag to the top of the hole. On mine, it's 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches. So that's how far I want my needle. I want my needle right above that hole. So it's 1.25 inches from the top of the bag in. So I'm going to go mark that on my machine like we did last week. I showed you with the tape how to mark it. I'm just measuring from my needle out 1.25 inches. So I bring my needle down right next to my ruler so I can see where that 1.25 inches is. And then I'm gonna put a piece of tape at the edge of my ruler. An 1.25 inches away from my needle. You might even have the guides on your sewing machine. There. So that tape is going to be my guide. I'm going to put my fabric, make sure the edge of my fabric is up against the edge of the tape. Does everyone understand that? Do you want me to show you? Carol,
I'm good. Thank you.
you guys are all good? Okay. We're almost done. This bag is so easy to make. Okay, so I finished sewing my second line, my second stitch line. And it looks like this. So I have my one line here and my one line here. And that's my channel. So it's closed back here. It's nice and clean, but on the right side where I want my bow to be all nice and pretty, my hole is open. So now the next step, we have 2 more steps. We're going to close up the bottom and put the drawstring through. So I'm just ironing mine one more time. So this is when you, well, let me ask, does anyone have questions? Okay, so this is the point where you get to decide, do you want to have your bow in the front or on the side? I'm gonna do, I did my sample in the front. So I'm going to do this one on the side. So I'm going to turn it back inside out. To do it on the side, what you do is you just close up your seam at the bottom with the seam allowance on the side, like this. And then you sew across here. If you want to have your bow in the front, then you lay your bag open like this with the seam in the center. So again, if you want your bow in the front, you'll have your bag laid out like this with the seam in the center, and then you'll pin across a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way across here, and then you're going to sew, put your needle in, sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you want your bow on the side, you lay it out like this with your seam allowance on the side and stitch all the way across right here. So I'm going to iron this seam back like that, so it's just a little easier for me to sew it. And I'm going to put in a few pins. Yeah, these would be great bags if you wanted to make a bunch for like party favors, or gifts for your friends over the holidays, hostess gifts, that kind of thing. So I've pinned it, and now I'm going to go to my machine and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I'll be back. Okay, so I finished sewing that seam and I'm just going to give it a little press. I'm gonna press it open. I showed you guys how you can, I think I did this last week, just push one side over and kind of cheat and press your seam open this way. Or you could just put it in your ironing board and work at it like this, get it open.
Would you recommend pinking the edges so it doesn't fray?
Yeah, if you want to take that extra step and pink the edges, you can. If we were in the makerspace, obviously we'd be serging the edges. But sure, yeah, I'm not pinking mine because this fabric doesn't fray too much, and because it's just kind of a reusable gift bag, it's not going to be something that's getting a lot of heavy use. So I'm not that worried. But yeah, pinking would definitely be the proper thing to do. Oh, a question. Oh, okay. Melissa, yeah, sorry, I went so fast. Yeah, you want to fold. So you're back, you haven't stitched these two lines yet, Melissa. So you fold this back. So this is your folded edge. At the very beginning, I had you fold a 1/2 inch over and you fold it again, you fold it again about 2 inches beyond. You want it to go just beyond your hole, your opening here. Let's see if I can show you on a little sample. We'll make a little sample here for you. I have a smaller piece of fabric. Let me fold it over a 1/2 inch. Okay, so you have your fabric. I'm doing a smaller version and I'm cutting this off. So, and you've already sewn your seam allowance, right? So we pin this. So we're pretending this is a smaller version, Melissa. And this is pressed open. Okay, so and your hole, you have a hole right here, right? So what you do is you fold this down like this. So this is nice and clean and finished because you've already ironed that down. And you want to match the seam here to the seam here. And you want this fold to go below the hole. So you should have this hole on this side where you left the opening for your drawstring. So it should be right below that hole. And then you're going to stitch right along this edge. So yeah, this raw edge is folded under so that you have a nice clean finish. You don't want to have a raw edge like this. Well, that's why we folded it under. The key thing is you want to make sure that you're below your hole. You don't want to sew on top of that hole. That's your channel. So it looks like this. You stitch right on the edge of the fold line below the hole right here. And then your second line is stitched above the hole. Does that help you, Melissa? So after you sew the bottom then and press it open, you can turn it right side out and use a pencil or your finger to get the corners pushed out. Sometimes I might even use the edge of my scissors if I'm feeling brave. Sometimes if a corner's not coming out, I'll take a pin and kind of pull it from the right side out like this.
Amy, when you ironed the bottom, did you cut the corners off? Like,
I didn't, you know, it was only a 1/4 inch. So that's the good, that's why I'm having you do a 1/4 inch.
mhm.
So it's just a 1/4 inch. So I don't really, you don't really need to.
Okay.
If you had a 1/2 inch seam allowance, yeah, you definitely want to round those edges. Okay, I had a little technical difficulty with my sewing machine and my stitch got all yucked up here. So that's why it's doing that. I'm gonna iron it and see if I can get it to smooth out. But if you're following along with me, you should be about this far along. You should have your bag like this, complete. The top is finished and clean, and the bottom's finished. I'm gonna go iron. I recommend ironing it now that it's turned right side out. Putting another press. All right, so now you have your bag, and last and final step is inserting your drawstring. This style works great, I think, with like a ribbon, you know, a pretty satin ribbon or whatnot, because that's bow is sort of the star. We're gonna use drawstring today because that's what we have, but if you want to try ribbon on another one, you can, or if you have ribbon now. We're gonna use the safety pin again. I'm putting it through one end of my drawstring, and then I'm going inside the hole. This is pretty easy. Last week that the double straw, the 2 drawstring was a little more complicated. This one is pretty straightforward. You're just gonna pull it all the way through. Does anyone have any questions?
Mhm.
So you want to make sure you don't lose your drawstring on the other side. So check. I just checked mine. I'm okay. I have plenty of drawstring. I'm not going to lose it. Okay. So I'm gonna try a little knot here on my ends so they don't fray. It looks nicer. I'm gonna tie a knot and just trim my ends. Like that. And there it is. So now you can just get my drawstrings straightened out, pull it shut, see how it looks. I'm gonna put something in my bag. See how it looks. It's like Santa's bag. So there it is. With the front, did a side bow, so my bow's on the side. Like this. And here's one with the front. All right, you guys. So there you have it. The unlined reusable fabric gift bag with a drawstring closure. And you guys can customize the sizes to whatever you like. You can do it with the one seam on one side. I mean, you could make this bag that we just made with two seams if you needed to on the side seams. For some reason, if you didn't have enough fabric to fold and you needed to have two seams, you could do that. You could also fold it from the bottom too. If you didn't want to have a seam down here, you could fold the fabric up. That's like what we did with the bag we made last week. But if you have a directional print, I think Pauline noticed that on the other side, it's upside down. So if you fold it up and have no seam at the bottom. So those are all the things that you do have to think about when you are planning a pattern and cutting the fabric and thinking it out. Does anyone have any more questions? Is there anything that I need to show you guys again?
Nope, I think it's good.
I want to see progress.
Well, I kind of screwed up a little bit on mine, but I know what my mistake is, so I know what to do next time. So I did a small bag because I had fabric that was already cut that was really small, like, you know, because I was late.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think that's-
cute. I like the red. Nice. What is that? Is it a ribbon?
It's yarn.
Oh, good idea. Yeah. I love that kind of yarn. Cool. It looks really cute. Aw.
Yeah, but I realized like when I cut the opening, I did it too far below from the top. So when I had to fold it really deep, you know?
Oh.
So now I don't really have a ruffle at the top because I made it too low and I didn't want the bag to be too small. Anyway.
Oh, so you didn't follow the 3.5 measurement?
No, because my bag is so much smaller.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
with-
modified it, but I made it too low.
Yeah, you have to refigure out how tall you want your ruffle to be.
Yeah,
Exactly. Got it. Yeah.
I know next time. But it still works, it still works. It kind of closes towards the top,
Yeah, I see. It doesn't have a ruffle. It looks more like a drawstring, like pants, like the waist.
Or like a cinch. Oh, I said like a cinch. but
Yeah, yeah. It's still
Yeah.
cute.
like a sack.
Yeah. Nice. Mary, how does yours look? All right. That's right. You made yours shorter. Cute. And Pauline and Raj. Raj left us.
I have to go look for yarn because it doesn't fit through what I.
Oh, your
Right.
hole?
My hole. So I'll just go look for yarn and then I'm done.
Oh, so what happened with the channel? The tape that we gave you doesn't fit?
No, I made it too narrow.
Oh, the hole is
Okay.
too narrow?
The hole's too narrow. I have to even, yeah.
Yeah, you need to leave, it needs to be at least a 3/4 of an inch. That hole.
Right, but I
opening.
have the idea, I can make more, and
Yeah.
now I know what, yeah, the width. But this is, uses less fabric, which is good.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
that's a good idea to use yarn though. Make it work.
yeah, or sew it thicker, or sew
Or you could cut the twill tape in half. It might fray though.
Yeah, it might fray. I'll just
And
make
ribbon
another
might
one
work
for
too.
that will fit that, and this will work. I'll just use a yarn like Carol said, like Carol did. That was a good
Yeah.
idea.
And Melissa, how did yours turn out? You still working? Well, I'm stoked because I'm gonna put my son's Christmas and his birthday is right next to Christmas, so he's gonna get these things. Melissa, you're still working? Melissa, is there anything you need me to show you? Okay. Well, that's all I have for you guys. I'll hang out and wait until Melissa's done. But if you're done and you want to go, you can. It's good to see you guys. I'll send you the feedback form. I'm gonna stop the recording.